Now let's go into the courtroom. First witness of the day, a forensic accountant.
Good morning, Judge.
Morning. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
What, ma'am, is your name?
Brooke Karrington.
Is that spelled Karrington?
Yes.
What do you do for a living?
I am a forensic accountant.
What is a forensic accountant?
Well, it is based on accounting, but it takes it some extra steps. Further than that, I look for a lot of the source of funds, the disposition of funds, what the transactions really mean, more than just the balancing of transactions and getting to a black and white number at the bottom. I try to understand more of the landscape and more of why things make sense and why they don't in the financial documentation that I look at.
More of a narrative?
Yes.
What, ma'am, is your education and training in forensic accounting?
I've been at this for 38 years, and I have a bachelor's in English, I have an MBA, and I have several certifications that support that.
Who is your employer?
I have a firm. It's a small firm. We're based in Salt Lake City.
Do you teach or present as it relates to forensic accounting?
Yes, I've presented many times over the years to Masters of Accounting students, mostly quite often at the business school at the University of Utah, and I am the adjunct professor of the Fraud Examination and Forensic Accounting course at the University of Utah's Business School.
Did you also have a hand in developing the curriculum for that course?
I did. I created it from scratch. I got no help.
You had two hands.
Two hands.
Ma'am, have you testified as an expert before?
Yes, I have.
Have you testified in state cases?
State cases, yes.
Federal cases?
Federal cases, yes.
Have you testified on behalf of both plaintiffs and plaintiffs and defendants?
That's correct, yes.
And both the state and the defense?
Yes.
About how many times?
Hundreds. I don't know how many.
When did you begin testifying?
I think the first time I testified for real was probably in 1991 or two, something like that.
And consistently since then?
Yeah, fairly consistently, yes.
Did the state engage you to forensically examine Kouri Richins' finances and related business practices leading up to and shortly after Eric Richins' death?
Yes.
And to value Eric Richins' estate at the time of his death?
Yes, that's right.
Did the state put any restrictions whatsoever on the scope of your forensic examination?
None.
Did the state restrict the time frame?
No.
Did the state restrict the types of transactions?
No.
The types of loans involved?
No.
Any restrictions at all?
No.
Did the state engage you on May the 31st, 2023?
Yes.
Is Summit County paying you for your time?
Yes, they are.
Are they paying you at your customary rate?
Yes, that's right.
All right, let's slip in a commercial break here. We'll get you back into the Utah courtroom for more testimony against Kouri Richins as the state continues its case with a forensic accountant. Sounds a little boring, right? Oh no, not in this case. This is huge for the state's case. What was Kouri doing, buying and selling? How broke was she? Stay with us. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ted Rollins. We are in Utah for the murder trial for defendant Kouri Richins. She faces a potential life sentence if convicted of killing her husband Eric, who died from a lethal dose of fentanyl back in 2022. In the months after Eric's death, she wrote the book about dealing with grief. Prosecutors say she masterminded the whole thing. Why? Because she was broke. Why was she broke? Because she was flipping houses and losing money. She was also having an affair, they say, with her handyman. On the stand now is a forensic accountant who's going to tell the jury exactly what the financial situation was for both Kouri and her husband at the time of his death.
Prior to the state engaging you, did you perform forensic accounting work for the estate of Eric Richins?
Yes, I did.
What accounting work did you perform for the estate of Eric Richins?
As I recall, most of the focus at that time was the use by Kouri Richins of the estates, the family money, and particularly the home equity line of credit that she had taken out against the home where the family lived.
Did there come a time when you stopped working for the estate of Eric Richins?
Yes.
When was that?
Well, I began working for them when Kouri Richins had filed a lawsuit against Katie Benson as the trustee of Eric's estate. And so that was the very end of April into May of 2022. And then I worked throughout that summer. And then at some point, the estate got new attorneys. And I had a Zoom call, maybe two, with them to kind of get them up to speed. And then after that, I didn't have a role in the case. I recall maybe they asked me for some follow-up to clarify some of the work that I'd already done. So it's really hard for me to determine exactly when I stopped working, but by the fall of 2022, I was done. I did have some additional kind of follow-up stuff. It's kind of a cloudy answer, but that's my best guess.
Did the estate of Eric Richins pay you approximately $14,000 for your services?
Yes.
After they paid you, did you have any further interaction with the estate of Eric Richins?
No.
Ma'am, what documents did you study to conduct your forensic analysis related to this case?
I've reviewed probably hundreds of thousands of documents and their deeds of properties, the loan agreements for the loans on those properties, loan agreements for a set of payday loans that Kouri Richins had, the UCC filings that are filed with the state of Utah associated with many of those loans, bank account statements for 27 accounts, and those include the family account that Eric Richins and Kouri Richins shared, from which they paid their household expenses, Eric's business accounts, Kouri Richins' business accounts, her personal accounts, checking accounts at America First Credit Union, Navy Federal Credit Union, credit card accounts, the home equity line of credit account. I also reviewed, were we just talking documents?
Yeah, let's continue with documents. Did you review any emails?
Tons of emails for many different purposes. I reviewed insurance policies and insurance payout documents, the estate planning documents like the will, the trust, the premarital agreement, the buy-sell agreement that Eric Richins and his business partner had for their business. I've reviewed the real estate purchase contracts, the REPCs, for most or all of the properties, specifically the 12 or 13 on the Big Midway house.
Okay. Did you speak with anybody? Did you speak with anyone as part of your analysis?
I did.
Who did you speak with, or what types of people did you speak with?
Okay, so I interviewed a number of people. Interviewed the CPA who had done tax accounting work for the Richins. I interviewed the realtor, Mike Momrose. I interviewed the insurance companies. I interviewed bank representatives. I interviewed lenders. I interviewed the prior owner of the big Midway house, the current owners of the Midway house, the building department of Wasatch County, that's the permitting entity for the big Midway house. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but...
Did you interview any representatives from insurance companies?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, can we approach for just a moment?
All right, we'll get a break, but first, Claudia King is watching along with us, former law enforcement officer. This is a key witness here because the jury is going to get the full picture of Kouri and maybe motive.
I absolutely agree with you, and I hope that the jury is listening and tuned in, because I think what we're going to see and hear is that Kouri was sinking fast, and she needed money, which is why she went and got that life insurance policy and set the plan in motion. I think this witness could be the linchpin that is going to put this all together for the jury.
Do you think motive-wise the appearance within the community of Park City is a big factor, where, if you believe she did it, that the idea of being broke, divorced, and found out as a horrible house flipper? You know, I mean, everyone has their sort of station in life, and I can imagine that she was walking around with her head held high as this, mom of three, great entrepreneur, when in the background she was failing miserably, according to the state. That can turn someone, can it not, to do something absolutely drastic?
Absolutely. I used to live in a small resort town just like Park City, and people there are very gossipy, and everybody knows what's going on in everybody else's business. And especially when you are a local business person, people are looking at everything that is going on in your life. And so I think that could have factored in to how she felt, that she didn't want to walk around as that failed business person, divorced, single mom. It was easier for her to think about walking around as the poor, sad widow. And that definitely could have factored in to what made her do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's such illogical thinking, but, we've seen it in other cases before where the idea of society thinking you were a failure was enough to push you to murder a person that you loved and or still loved. It's disgusting. If the state is right, and we're still not through the trial yet, we're still getting through the state's case. Let's get a break. When we come back, we'll head back and get into the courtroom for more of this tutorial from the forensic accountant who looked into Kouri Richins' financial situation at the time of Eric's death. Stay with us.
Nights on Court TV.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We have a big hour ahead here.
Your deplorable actions are unforgivable.
The community still doesn't know how this Boston police officer died.
He can't prove one element of his case.
It was a dramatic day, a dramatic moment inside the courtroom.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Back to Utah, day 7 of the Kouri Richins trial. She's accused of poisoning her husband, Eric, with fentanyl, then writing a children's book on grief in the wake of his death. Let's go back into the courtroom. More from this forensic accountant on the witness stand.
What, ma'am, is your methodology or process for forensically examining someone's finances?
My process usually begins with the bank account statements, because that tells a lot about a business or a person, and helps me understand the landscape of things, and helps create a narrative, because those are the things where it tells me the source of funds, how much it is, how often it comes in, how it's used. And you think about someone who has young kids at home, their expenses are going to look very different than people who are later on in their life. And so it describes a lot. And then also what's left over at the end of the month, and what things look like over time. And that helps me understand then. I get to know an account specifically, and I get to know what's typical in that account, and then therefore it helps me understand what is atypical, so what's not typical. And it also helps me understand the different points along a chronology about what happened when, and that is also very informative.
Does that inform the narrative that you referenced?
Yes, it does.
Let's please now step through how you apply your methodology in this case, okay?
Okay.
Did you apply your methodology in this case by first analyzing Kouri Richins' bank accounts?
That was my beginning point, yes.
What bank accounts did she have?
She had her business account for Kouri Richins Realty, and that's at America First Credit Union. And we refer to the bank account number by the last 4 digits, just for brevity, 6577. And then she had a personal checking account at America First Credit Union that's technically a joint checking account. It was opened about the time that Eric and Kouri Richins got married. Over time, I can't see any indication that Eric ever even used that account. So that's what I refer to as Kouri's personal account, 5244. Her Navy Federal Credit Union account, there's a line of credit there and a checking account. The checking account especially is one that becomes important. The family account at America First Credit Union, that's where the household expenses were paid. It's a joint account. 2204 is that one. And then I know you asked me about Kouri's accounts, but I also looked at Eric's business accounts, 7664, and then he also had a personal account.
Let's go back to Kouri Richins' accounts.
Okay.
You mentioned business accounts. To analyze her business accounts, did you first have to understand her business?
Yes, that's helpful.
Scott, can I get 4-4, please? Can you see 4-4? I'm sorry, I'm locked out here.
Yes, I can.
It requires a password, Your Honor.
No problem.
Scott, can you scroll through that, please? Ma'am, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is the business registration that Kouri Richins Realty filed with the state of Utah, and this was returned in response to a subpoena that the prosecution sent to the state.
Your Honor, the state moves 4-4 into evidence.
No objection.
States 4-4 is admitted.
Your Honor, can the court publish it, please?
There you go.
Okay, ma'am. What, beginning with the header, does this document tell us?
It tells us the registration number, which is a number the state gives it. The business name is Kouri Richins Realty, LLC. It's a limited liability company. It was registered April 26th of 2019.
Page 2, Scott. What, ma'am, does this page tell us?
Well, it repeats the name of the business, Kouri Richins Realty. Article 2 shows that it's in the business of selling and buying real estate.
Did you investigate kind of what part of the selling and buying of real estate business Kouri Richins was involved in?
Yes.
What part?
Well, she's a licensed realtor, but mostly she's in the business of buying and selling real estate for the purpose of fixing and flipping it. So buying a home, remodeling it, rehabbing it, and selling it.
If you could look down at Article 3, what information does this provide?
This shows who the registered agent is, and that is Kouri Richins and the 282 Willow Court in County.
Need a break? Back after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ted Rowlands. Good to be with you on this Tuesday. We begin the hour in Utah, where the state's case continues against Kouri Richins. The mother of 3 is accused of killing her husband, Eric, with 5 times a lethal dose of fentanyl. Back in March of 2022, prosecutors said that Richins was in debt and planned her husband's death as a way to collect on his life insurance policies, and there were multiple. The defense says Eric Richins had a drug problem, and that's what happened. He accidentally killed himself with fentanyl through a THC-laced gummy that night. On the stand is a very important witness for the state because it proves, the information this woman is delivering, a motive. A forensic accountant is talking about Kouri Richins and her financial situation at the time of Eric's death, telling the jury that she was flipping houses at the time.
Did you investigate whether Kouri Richins Realty used any additional business addresses?
Yes.
Did she?
Yes.
Do you know that address?
Yes, it's a P.O. Box in Camas, P.O. Box 759 in Camas.
Page 3, please, Scott. What does Article 4 tell us?
Article 4 is the section where the members of that company are listed, and this lists Eric Richins at the family home.
Can we go back down, Scott? Next page, please. What, ma'am, does this tell us?
So this is, as it states, the summary of the online changes. It's very typical for companies when ownership changes or the address changes that they can go into the portal and change things. So this shows that 4 days later, the previous member was changed to be Kouri Richins, removing Eric Richins.
So am I right then that the business was registered on April the 26th and then in Eric Richins' name, and then 4 days later the member was changed to Kouri Richins?
That's right.
Going forward, did the member remain Kouri Richins?
That's correct. I've checked it periodically and there have been no changes.
Thanks, Scott. Ma'am, what in terms of financing and accounting is an alter ego?
An alter ego is where there are a couple of businesses or a business and a person that are so related that they're indistinguishable. And that can be the commingling of funds, or one relies so heavily on the other for capitalization. There's such a sameness that there's no distinguishing one from the other.
Did you analyze the relationship between Kouri Richins and K. Richins Realty to determine whether there are any indicators that they are alter egos of each other?
I did.
Are there any indicators?
There are many, yes.
And what are they?
The use of funds, the transfer of funds between the business and the person assist each other. There is a sameness, the same addresses are used, the same accounts are used. The business account is primarily for business, but there are many personal expenses that do appear there. And so, and the capitalization for the business squarely comes from the acts of Kouri Richins.
When analyzing Kouri Richins' business and personal accounts, what first struck you?
Well, I usually take a first pass and just to try and absorb things. And when I got to October of 2021, there are many transactions that didn't clear the bank. Either they didn't clear the bank without a fee. Some of them were overdrafted and paid by the bank, and some were just returned non-sufficient funds. Most of us know that as NSF. And the account was perpetually in the hole. Even though there was money coming in, it was going out at a very exhaustive pace. And then
let me stop you there. We'll unpack this bit by bit.
Okay.
Scott, can I get 5-106 Delta, please? Ma'am, do you recognize this document?
Can't see it. My apologies.
Yes, I do.
Did you prepare this document?
I did.
What material did you use to prepare it?
This is drawn directly from the K. Richins Realty account 6577 at America First Credit Union.
State moves to admit 5-106 Delta.
No objection.
States 5-106 Delta is admitted.
Can the court publish it, please?
Done.
Okay, let's zoom in on this. What generally does this exhibit depict?
So this is just the overdraft and non-sufficient funds transactions for each of these months, just in that one account. And so I started in January of 2021, and this follows through March of 2022.
Does this provide us, or does this tell us that for that 15-month period, there were 236 overdraft or non-sufficient fund transactions from that single account?
That's correct.
And that the amount of transactions that tried to pass but didn't was $360,000?
That's right.
And that as a result of that, this account was assessed $5,600 in fees?
That's correct.
Does this exhibit provide you as a forensic accountant any information regarding trends?
Yes. As I mentioned before, I try to understand the chronology of things, and so understand kind of what is typical for an account. So when things change, I can understand that a little bit more, or at least seek to find an understanding of it. So if you go down the number of transactions column, what I did is just count up the number of transactions in a particular month, and you can see that for most of the year 2021, it's minimal, de minimis, not really that big of a deal, relatively speaking. And then in October through the end of March, it's a drastic increase in funds that did not clear the bank, or transactions that didn't clear the bank without a fee. And then if you go over to the amount column, that represents the amount. I just added up the transactions, the value of each transaction in each of those months. So in November and December, those are separate buckets of transactions that she tried to pay without a fee, and that didn't happen. So $91,000 in each of those months.
So let me just pick an example. December. Does this show that in December she had 77 overdraft or non-sufficient fund transactions totaling $91,000?
That's what that says, yes.
And that costs $2,000 in fees.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that upward trend began in October and continued through March.
That is correct.
Did you trace these overdraft and non-sufficient fund transactions?
I did.
What did she use the money for?
A lot of them were debt payments or expenses that she either paid or attempted to pay to rehab vendors, like contractors and subs and trades for her properties.
Did she also try to pay herself?
Yes, she did.
Scott, can I get 5-109 Delta, please? Ma'am, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
Did you prepare it?
I did.
What material did you use to prepare it?
This also drew from that same account at America First, the Kouri Richins Realty account 6577, and the personal account 5244 in some instances, and then also that Navy Federal Credit Union checking account for Kouri Richins.
The state moves to admit 5-109 Delta.
No objection.
5-109D is admitted.
Okay, can we go in, Scott, please? Zoom on that, that kind of left-hand block. Perfect. What, ma'am, does this depict?
They are pairs. And so on the left hand, these are the checks that Kouri Richins wrote from her Navy Federal Credit Union account to herself and deposited them into the America First Credit Union accounts. And they were returned unpaid. They bounced.
So does this show that Kouri Richins wrote approximately $60,000 in checks to herself beginning in August of 2021 through May of 2022 that bounced?
That's correct.
And she wrote them from a checking account that had a balance of either that had a balance that ranged between negative $51 and $29.
That's right.
So taking the December 23rd, 2021 line as an example, does this show that on December the 23rd, Kouri Richins wrote a check from her Navy Federal account for $10,000, deposited that in her America First Credit Union account at a time that she was $51 in the hole on her Navy account?
That's correct. She wrote two of those checks, the one for $10,000 and then the next one for $4,000.
Got it. Then there was another $10,000 the next day, right?
That's right.
Thanks, Scott.
The forensic accountant going through Kouri Richins' financial transactions before the death of her husband. We'll get a break, get you back into the Utah courtroom for more of the case against Kouri Richins when we return. Stay with us.
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of three, met an untimely end, and Kouri, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder.
He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of grief?
The truth will come out.
The Grief Author Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Back to Utah we go for more of the case against Kouri Richins, the children's grief book author accused of killing her husband Eric with fentanyl back in 2022. Prosecutors point to Richins' increasing debt and trouble in the couple's marriage as motive. The defense said Eric had a history with drug abuse, and that's what happened. He accidentally overdosed. Let's go back into the courtroom now where we've been hearing from this forensic accountant detailing Kouri Richins' financial situation.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, ma'am, you mentioned how in analyzing the non-sufficient and overdraft fund transactions, that beginning in October there was an increase in the number of overdraft and NSF transactions. Did that cause you to then drill down into the October through March bank statements?
I did, yes.
Scott, can I please get 5-29 Delta? Echo. Foxtrot. Golf. Hotel. Ma'am, do you recognize Exhibit 5-29D through H?
Yes, I do.
Generally, what are they?
They are the America First Credit Union bank account statements for the K. Richins Realty account 6577 from October 21 to February 22 that America First Credit Union responded pursuant to a subpoena from the prosecution.
Your Honor, the state moves Exhibits 529D through H into evidence.
No objection.
5-29D through H are admitted.
Scott, can we bring up, please, 529D to publish? Ma'am, for those of us whose spouses handle the banking, what are we looking at?
This is a bank account statement.
What I'd like to do is, well, did you analyze this bank account statements and the others to, or did you analyze them?
Yes, I did.
If agreeable, can you maybe grab, there's a hand mic up there.
That's okay. If you promise to stay tethered to the podium and turn your lav off, this will work.
I just turned it off, Your Honor.
There you go. Okay.
Thanks, Judge.
Ms. Karrington, what I'd like you to do, please, is walk the jury through how you analyze this bank statement. Oh, we have a pointer. There it is.
Bosses and I don't really agree.
And please ask Scott to blow it up, highlight it.
Okay. Does this work? Scott, would you please, let's start with the header. I don't know. Okay, so this is the header that shows Scott, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the header. So this will show the owner of the account. This is Kouri Richins Realty LLC. This is that P.O. Box 759 in Camas that we talked about. And then this is the account statement for October 31st of 2021. Here's the account number 6577. And then this section below is the summary account, the summary of the account. So there's a share savings that is reported on this bank account statement along with the checking account. And it shows at the end of the month, these two accounts were in the negative $1,684.75. So this is that same month that we've just been talking about. And so then I would start to look at the transactions. So Scott, can we do the body, please? Maybe just the checking is fine. Okay, so what happens here is we have the posted date. The effective date is like the date of that the transaction came through, and then the posted date is when it is posted to the account. So you can see in the body here under the description, some of them are very descriptive and you can tell who the payee is. That's the entity who receives the money on this transaction. Some do not. They say bank-to-bank transfer, and we'll go back to that in a little bit. And then you go over here to the transaction amount. I'm just going to skip it. Excuse me. You go here to the transaction amount, and these are negatives, meaning they're paid out of the account. And if they do not have a negative here, that's a deposit into the account. And then on the far right is the running total balance of the account. Sorry.
I have it.
Did you? Oh, thank you. Okay, Scott, can we go to the next page, please? So, I'm sorry, can we back up a little bit? Back to the first page, transactions, sorry. Okay, so this part here, down here, these automatic withdrawals. Chemical Bank is the payment on the HELOC. It's usually more than $100, but that's what that is. And then the Delta Bridge, Blue Bridge, Fairmont, and Zahava are going to become familiar names. Those four I could see posting on October 1st. And then Scott, could we please go to the second page?
Let's bring in Marie Pereira. She's watching along with us. She's a former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney. Marie, what stands out here? What is the importance of this witness for the state?
It's all part of the motive. The motive was she was broke and she wanted his money, and plus she had a sneaky link. We haven't heard about that completely yet. I'm very excited to hear about that part. But when you look at a person's spending patterns, it shows you what is on their mind, what's important to them. How responsible are they? And from what I'm seeing, she was broke as hell. Everything was going into bounce check status. And it really helps the state prove that she had every reason to try to get rid of him. It's part of the circumstantial evidence necessary to show motive. Motive you don't have to show as a prosecutor, but you really, as a storyteller, need to show motive in order to explain to the jurors why this young woman with 3 beautiful children, a handsome, successful husband, and we thought she was successful too, would plot to murder her husband. So she's a key witness and quite compelling too.
Yeah, she knows her stuff, that's for sure, and is,
yep.
She's not overly heady or nerdy. It's easy to follow along with her. At the end of the day, is it more important from the state's standpoint to create this story and narrative in leaning into the financial stuff or the cheating? Which do you think human nature is going to, as a juror, from a juror standpoint, lean into more or react to more? Someone who's broke and losing money hand over fist, as it seems as she was, And we all know how that ends. It ends with, it's a horrible ending because at some point you can't continue to move money around. It comes crashing down. Or having the relationship with the handyman.
You know, you're speaking to the cheatingologist. I'm the cheating expert. I've been married to 3 cheaters in the past. So you're asking me to choose between a cheater being a potential murderer or a broke person being a potential murderer. I say it's 50-50. When you add the two together, it will create a situation where she could be convicted. Because not only were you broke, you didn't love your man, you had a whole other man. Let's wait until we see what he looks like. The side man, not side woman, side man, and see how fine was he? Did she really fall in love with this guy and want her husband out of the way? And plus she wanted money too? It could be a situation both have to be present to support the motive. Because at the end of the day, it is still crazy. 3 beautiful kids, young people, successful. You could cheat, take the money and not murder your husband. That's what I tell everybody. You could cheat and not murder.
Yeah, or get divorced and not murder. That's
exactly
a lot easier path. Let's get a break. When we come back, we'll head back and pick up more of this forensic accountant on the stand detailing the finances of these 2 before Eric's death. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ted Rollins. Our cameras remain in Utah, where it is day 7 of the Kouri Richins trial. She's accused of killing her husband, Eric, with a deadly dose of fentanyl mixed in a cocktail, a Moscow Mule. They were celebrating, she told police, because they had just closed on a house. So she made him a Moscow Mule, and he ended up dead. And they say she killed him. Why? Because she owed millions of dollars in failed real estate investments and needed his life insurance money so that she could run off with her boyfriend and start a new life and keep the appearance of success in her small town of Park City, Utah. Now, the defense says this is not what happened. He had a problem, a drug problem, and that he accidentally OD'd. On the stand is a forensic accountant. Let's go back in.
And then you can see that those, we'll get to those in a second. She also has Boomerang ×3 and Fund Fi. And so the Boomerang ones we can describe in a minute are property payments that are monthly. And this Fund Fi is $3,107 that she obligated to pay every single week. Can we go down to the bottom, please? Okay, stop. A little bit up, please. Okay, right there is good. Okay, so remember those names from before. We can get to here. Remember these 4 names, Delta Bridge, Blue Bridge, Fairmont, and Zahava. Those were paid on October 1st. They're also paid on October 4th, down here on October 5th, and then on October 6th. These are 4 payday lenders. They're accounts receivable loans where she's committed to pay every single day these amounts over here. So $2,100 a day plus the other ones that we've noted. And so.
Sure. Are you also, well, scroll down and if you could also, what if anything are you seeing about, I gotta be tethered. What if anything are you seeing about the balance history as you're looking at this?
So I'm looking here, let's see if I can get this to go over to the running total over here on the side. You can see at the top of where we're looking here, she gets down to about $2,600 in the account, and then here comes $16,800 into the account, bumps it back up, and then there's those daily payments that she has to pay, and then she gets another bump of $18,900, and then down here at the bottom you see this $39,000 coming in That's a deposit from merchant capital. So those are representing incoming funds to the account. And so that caused me to look at where those are coming from, especially these that say just the bank-to-bank transfer up here. I'm sorry, this is not working. This bank-to-bank transfer here, this bank-to-bank transfer here. So where did those come from? And so that caused me then to look at the UCC filings.
Scott, can you go to the next page, please? Does that trend of automatic withdrawals to service debt just continue throughout the month of October?
Yes, it did. You can see, again, the same devices, and I don't agree. I'm so sorry. Okay, you can see the same payments here. Then she's added a few. Here's the Advantage platform is a new one. And then you go down here, FundFi Merchant is a new one. Greengrass Capital is one that she's been paying for a while. And this one will be significant. Kind of put a pin in this one, $5,438. So she's got all these others that are daily payments. FundFi and Greengrass Capital are weekly payments. And so what I started to do was calculate how much were these debt payments and who were these lenders, what are these loans? And so she's obligated herself on these, the consistent for of $2,100 every day. So that's about $10,000 a week. And then she adds the FundFi for $3,100 and the Greengrass for $5,438. And that's every single week she has to come up with that money just to stay current and avoid default, because the default clauses on all of these, they're already starting at high interest rates. But if they go into default, the interest rate almost doubles.
And then, ma'am, what else as we go through? We can just go down, maybe, Scott, to the end of the statement. Just scroll through so we can look at the balance history. What is the balance history, if anything, telling you?
Well, the balance history fluctuates greatly, right? And it hovers into the low figures, and then it goes into the negative. And then this is what I'm talking about, where you see here, like on, starting on about October 13th, these start to be overdrawn, and they were paid initially. And then you look over here at the account balance, it starts to go into the negative. And so then that, if you, let's go to the next page. Just maybe start at the top. And so then you can see here that these were, the top ones were returned. They incurred a fee. She's got a little bit of money coming in, but not much. And then can we scroll down, please? Then this just really caught my eye that something obviously was going on at this time. Here she's trying to pay for business expenses, for debt payments, a couple of personal expenses, and these are all being returned. And she's $6,000 in the hole at the end of this page. Can we go to the next page, please? Here she has a new deposit from a new lender, One Main Financial, on October 20th for $31,680. And then she used that money, as you can see. You just pay attention to the balance on the right-hand side. She used that to pay debt. And then you can also see here on the 20th, she's got CashNet USA, which is a new one. Can we scroll down a little bit more, please? Oh, let's stop here. Right here on October 22nd, this bank-to-bank transfer, she's got $77,000 that comes in here. This is where she's sold one of her properties. So in addition to selling her properties, and she's got the accounts receivable loans, the payday loans, she has money coming in, but then I started to look at the velocity, how quickly, how long did that money last? And so if we keep scrolling.
All right, going through Kouri Richins' bank statements, we'll get a break, get you back into that Utah courtroom for more testimony against the mother of 3 accused of killing her husband.
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of 3, met an untimely end, and Kouri, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder.
He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of grief?
The truth will come out.
The Grief Author Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
In the state of Utah, it is day 7 of testimony in the case against Kouri Richins. The defendant here is accused of killing her husband with a drink spiked with a deadly dose of fentanyl and then writing a children's book about grief to gain sympathy in the community. That's what the prosecutors say. The defense says Eric Richins died of an overdose because he had a drug problem. Let's go back into the courtroom now. On the stand is a forensic accountant detailing the horrible financial situation of Kouri Richins at the time of Eric's death.
We keep scrolling down. You can see, and can we continue, please? Next page. She pays for some rehab expenses for painters and things like that. She's managing the business using some of her revenues from her sales of properties, but then she's also incurring more and more debt because it's not enough. And you can see here on October 27th, she's got a new one for QSF Capital. And this payment, so there's QFS Capital. This lender gives her the income in stages. And then you see down, Scott, can you highlight October 27th where QFS Capital, down, that one, please? The $1,689.75. And that's a payment that she needs to pay every day in order to stay current on that. So that's on top of the other loans that she already has to pay. You can see down on the 28th, the very bottom line of this screen, on October 28th, you can see another payment right there for QFS Capital of $1,689.75. And so then back to my process, I start to look at this and try to understand where this money is coming from, who these lenders are, where the money is going to, and what's the end game.
Perfect. I'll take.
Thank you.
Okay, ma'am, that was the October statement, correct?
Excuse me, yes.
My fault.
Fine.
We're not going to go through November, December, January, February, but let me ask you, do those months present the same as October?
Yeah, in the fundamental nature, yes.
And by fundamental nature, do you show that, or do you mean that she had similar debt service throughout that time period?
Similar, yes. I mean, there are changes, of course, but yes, the same fluctuations in the bank account, the same adding new lenders consistently, and using a lot of the new money to pay for debt.
Do those other statements present the same low balance history?
Yes.
Does she deplete whenever she receives funds into the account? Does she deplete them with similar velocity?
Object to leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
So you just said that analyzing this statement caused you to caused you to next analyze her debt. Is that right?
That's right.
Let's turn there, please. Scott, can I get 5-13 Delta? And I think there are 4 pages. If you could scroll through them, please. 5-113. Ma'am, do you recognize that?
I do.
Did you prepare it?
I did.
What material did you review to prepare it?
So this was a combination of the bank account statements, the loan documents for the accounts receivable payday loans, the credit card accounts, her lines of credit at different banks, and the home equity line of credit.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit 5-113 Delta.
No objection.
5-113D is admitted.
Can we please publish the first page? Ma'am, what does this depict?
So in that same time period as before, starting in January of 2021 through March of 2022, the total debt she owed on real properties, the credit accounts, the credit cards and her lines of credit, and the account receivable loans, the payday loans that we've talked about.
Does this show that on March of 2022, she owed $7.5 million and was paying approximately $80,000 a month towards that debt?
That is what that shows, yes.
Scott, can we split screen, please, Delta with Foxtrot?
Which Foxtrot?
113.
$7 million in debt. Marie Pereira seems like she's drowning.
I don't know what to say. I'm taking notes. And I said she's an LBH, a low balance history kind of girl. Paying $80,000 a month in interest, $7.5 million in debt. That gives her all of the reason to try to get rid of her husband. This is what the prosecutors want. And I was thinking to myself, they should do a split screen. And he just said, let's do a split screen to show how broke she was before when he was alive and how she was spending after. The before and after really is going to hone in on the motive. They're doing a great job because they have me captivated. But still, I can't wait to see the side sneaky link to see what would drive her to do that. Because it wasn't just the money. It's the money and the man. The imminent motive. That's the worst.
Or is it because she's so self-centered, the men are disposable? It really isn't the man. She didn't marry. I don't think she is doing this to live happily ever after with the handyman. Maybe not. But to me, it's more.
Well, we don't know.
She's so self-absorbed, if you believe the state, that she doesn't care who's ever in her way. In fact, I wouldn't want to be that handyman who is now going to get all of her attention after Eric's death because, hold on. It's all about her, and she wants people to think she's this flipping queen in Park City.
Kouri Richins was not rich. This forensic accountant is clearly showing she was a broke person, living off her husband, overspending, and she didn't really know how to handle her finances. She wasn't an excellent flipper, like you said. So there has to be a motive, and they're showing the motive right now in black and white. When they're using these demonstrative tools, it really captivates you. When they're highlighting it in yellow, they're doing the most for you to understand the before when husband was alive and after. I'm waiting for the after to see what kind of crazy spending she's going to be engaging in, and you're going to see all of the money that she got, maybe from the insurance money and from her. Exactly.
Right.
And then it's going to solidify the motive.
Gotta go. Back with more. After this, stay with us. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ted Rollins. We are in Utah this afternoon for the murder trial for Kouri Richins, the mom of 3 who wrote that book to help children overcome the death of a family member, specifically a father, is now on trial for murder. Prosecutors say that Richins killed her husband, Eric, by poisoning his drink with a lethal dose of fentanyl in order to collect his life insurance money. The defense says Eric actually he overdosed himself because he had a drug problem, and he took a THC gummy which was laced with fentanyl. That's their theory. Let's go back into the courtroom now. We've been listening to a forensic accountant detailing Kouri's abysmal financial situation before Eric's death.
113F hasn't been offered yet.
Are they two?
Mr. Bloodworth, 113F hasn't been offered yet.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. They were a package. They're marked as one.
Was that D or 113? Can we have a more clear record on that? 113. I admitted 113D. Ms. Nestor didn't object.
I've confused the record.
Okay.
Let me try again.
Please.
Scott, can I get the first page split with the third page?
Understood.
Sorry. Ma'am, what does this depict?
So this is just a graphic depiction, a line graph that uses the information from the chart.
Go ahead.
Sorry. The orange line along the bottom is the total debt paid, and then the blue line above is the total debt owed. And this is for, again, all the real estate, all the lines of credit, credit cards, and the payday loans.
Does this exhibit show that between January 21 and March of 22, her debt was generally increasing except for a dip between, call it, August and February?
That's correct.
And that whole time, the amount she was paying to service that debt remained generally the same except for a blip in April of 2021?
That's right.
Scott, can I get page 2 of this exhibit, please? And we can take down page 3. Ma'am, what does this depict?
This is that same concept. I just wondered if we might want to discuss this without the real estate. So this is just the loans, the lines of credit, the credit cards, the payday loans, and So I've just taken out the loans on the properties.
So does this, for example, show that in March of 22, she owed $800,000 in non-real estate debt?
That's what this shows, yes.
And she was also that month paid about $80,000 to service the debt.
That's right.
Which is about the same $80,000 she was paying to service everything.
It is the same. Well, and for most of her real estate loans were balloons. So her notes were balloons, like a 6 month. She'd borrow here, and they did not require monthly payment. Most of them did not require monthly payments, and so that's why you'd see the same numbers there.
Scott, can we split that with page 4, please? Is this again then the graph of what's on the left-hand side?
That's right. So the same concept, just without the loans on the real estate.
The total debt owed seems to flatline about October 2021.
Yes, it pretty much does, yeah.
Why?
There are a lot of reasons why. I don't know all of them. It looks to me like she's just exhausted her funding sources, and there are very few new funding sources that kind of come in after that first period. You know, we talked a lot about some of the new ones. Kind of after that, there weren't a lot of new ones. And so that's the explanation I believe is correct.
Thank you, Scott. Does understanding Kouri Richins' debt narrative begin with any particular loan?
Yes.
What loan?
When she started her business, the home equity line of credit that was taken out in March of 2019.
What is a home equity line of credit?
So it is a loan, but the funds are held and they're available for a borrower to draw from as needed. So it could sit there just as an open line of credit and not be used. And it's based on whatever equity that someone has in their home.
And was the home involved the home that she and Eric Richins and their children lived in?
Yes, it did.
Scott, can I get 6-1, please? Ma'am, do you recognize this agreement?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is the warranty deed from November of 2012, in which Eric Richins took ownership of the property that he bought from Clint and Katie Benson. This is the Willow Court home.
Your Honor, the state moves 6-1 into evidence.
No objection.
State 6-1 is admitted.
Scott, if you could zoom in on kind of the top half. Ma'am, what information does this provide?
So the warranty deed is the transfer of ownership. And so shows that Clint and Katie Benson previously owned the property, and Eric Richins is the new owner of the property. Lot D11 Wild Willow subdivision is the part of the legal description. And then finally, there's the date of November 9th, 2012.
Was this the warranty deed in place on the home at the time the HELOC was taken out?
Yes.
Thank you, Scott. Can you please bring up 5-4?
Your Honor, we would, at this point, lodge a 404B objection to this document and all the testimony that flows from it.
Would you approach, please?
Sidebar there. We'll bring back in Marie Pereira. So her name's not on the deed of the house, yet she was able to secure this home equity line of credit, and we're going to find out that Eric was none the wiser that she had done this, either by I believe she forged his name or somehow got around it, but she's not on the deed, so she's not able to do that. This is the first time where she sort of jumps the shark and gets, now she's jumping into illegal territory, and her behavior is becoming risky. How important is that overall?
It is overall very important. It's all part of the $7.5 million debt narrative that supports the prosecution's narrative of why she caused the death of her husband. So the two have to be, which is why her attorneys are trying to stop the jurors from hearing it by claiming 4-4, that it could be extremely prejudicial and not probative. And now the judge is going to have to make that decision whether or not to let it in. I'm surprised that they didn't discuss that in a pretrial, out of presence of jury situation. But it is important to answer your question because it's all part of the circumstantial building block that's required. Once you introduce motive, it's money, having affairs, lust, and the money part is extremely important. What's happening right now? They're doing a wonderful case of presenting the motive behind the murder.
Yeah. All right, let's get a break here, and then we'll pick it up after the sidebar, see what the judge decides after the defense objection. And he's the one that called the sidebar. Let's get a break back into that Utah courtroom right after this.
Weeknights on Court TV.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We have a big hour ahead here.
Your deplorable actions are unforgivable.
The community still doesn't know how this Boston police officer died.
He can't prove one element of his case.
It was a dramatic day, a dramatic moment inside the courtroom.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Let's head back to Utah now, where testimony continues in the Kouri Richins trial. She's accused of lacing her husband's drink with fentanyl back in 2022 so that she could cash in on his life insurance. She wrote this children's book there you see on the screen to help her children grieve the death of their father. Even went on local television and talked about her book. Now she's on trial. Let's head back to the courtroom. The forensic accountant on the stand.
Ma'am, what is this?
This is the HELOC, the home equity line of credit. This is the agreement that kind of outlines the terms of the loan.
And who does it identify as the borrower?
Eric Richins.
And what does it identify as the credit limit on the loan?
$250,000.
Scott, if you can scroll down, please, to the first signature. Actually, it may be the only signature. Can you zoom in on the signature, please? Ma'am, who does this show signed as the borrower?
The borrower was Eric Richins, but signed by Kouri Richins as attorney in fact.
And she signed as attorney in fact for Eric Richins on March the 19th, 2019?
Yes.
Thank you. Scott, please. 5-89 Delta. Ma'am, do you recognize this document?
I do.
Did you prepare it?
I did.
What material did you use to prepare it?
I used the HELOC statements from TCF Bank / Huntington Bank.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit 5-89 Delta.
No objection.
5-89D is admitted.
Ma'am, what does this depict?
So along the top are the months, every other month, but each bar represents a month. And the negative numbers indicate the balance of the loan as of that month. So, for example, on March 1st, March of 2019, there was a draw of $60,000 shortly after the loan was approved. And so that stayed at that balance for a few months. And then following that, every month I've just taken the balance of the account and depicted it in a bar.
And the bars go downward because this is a negative number. It's the amount owed?
That's right. And so I've got on the left-hand side, those are negative numbers. And you can see the negative $250,000. That's the limit, the credit limit of this loan. And so you can see relative to the credit limit where the balance was in any given month.
What did you determine was the balance on the HELOC at the time of Eric Richins' death?
At the time of his death, it was over its limit, $254,000.
Did you analyze the payments made towards this balance?
Yes.
You mentioned the 60 was a draw. So, what did your analysis show regarding payments?
With the exception of one, the payments were interest-only payments, so the minimum payment. And then you can see in October of 2020, there's a rise in the balance. There was a $50,000 payment made in October 2020. And so that's why the balance is different there. And then by the June and July of 2021, it was at its balance or exceeding.
So am I right then that but for the one $50,000 payment in October 2020, the only payments were minimum monthly interest payments?
That's correct.
Were you able to trace the HELOC draws to see where the money went?
Yes.
What did you determine?
They were by and large for rehab expenses related to Kouri Richins projects.
Let me back up half a step. When you analyze the payment history, what were the source of the payment? What was the source of the payments?
The source of the payments that made those interest-only payments and the $50,000, those were from the K. Richins Realty accounts and sometimes from the Kouri's personal checking 5244 from America First.
So am I right then that the money was drawn from the HELOC to support Kouri Richins' business, and the payments were made from Kouri Richins to the HELOC?
That's correct.
Any transaction history involving Eric Richins?
Not that I could see. I've looked at every transaction available. I couldn't see any.
Thank you, Scott. Can I get 5-6, please?
Sorry, Scott. Let me work on that. Scott, if you would briefly disconnect and reconnect so I can see your connection again. Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's get a commercial break there during a little delay in the courtroom. This forensic accountant saying that Eric Richins didn't ever pay any of this HELOC back because prosecutors say he didn't know about it. She took it behind his back. Stay with us. Let's head back to Utah now for more of the murder trial for Kouri Richins. She faces a potential life sentence if convicted of murdering her husband, Eric, who died from a lethal dose of fentanyl back in 2022. In the months after Eric's death, Kouri wrote a children's book about dealing with grief. In court, the forensic accountant continues to testify on direct. Let's go back in and pick it up where we left off.
Ms. Karrington, what are we looking at?
This is the bank account statement from America First Credit Union for Kouri Richins. This is that personal checking account 5244 for April of 2019, which would have covered the March of 2019 transactions.
And did you trace that $60,000 draw that we just looked at into this account?
I did.
Can you please show us where it lands in this account?
Yes, I think it's the second. If you can see on March 29th, there's a deposit of $60,000 into the account.
Did you then trace the funds from that account?
I did.
Where did the funds go?
Basically for rehab expenses and debt payments. Well, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Scott, can I get 6-23D, please? Ma'am, do you recognize this document?
I do.
Did you prepare it?
I did.
What material did you use to prepare it?
I used the loan documents for the different properties, the deeds, the warranty deeds and trust deeds for the properties, the bank account statements for K. Richins Realty and Kouri Richins. I think that's it.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit 6-23 Delta.
It's just the one page, right?
It is.
Okay.
No objection.
6-23 Delta is admitted.
Ms. Karrington, what does this depict?
This is what I've called the purchase timeline, and it depicts the purchase of the properties in these years by K. Richins Realty and Kouri Richins.
What trend information, if any, does this depiction provide?
Well, the numbers of, there are a couple of things. The numbers of projects from 1 in 2019 to 5 in 2020 to 15 in 2021, and then finally the one large project in 2022. And then also the aggregate amount. So this is based on the purchase price. So she purchased one for $215,000 in 2019, and then when you get to 21, it's $6.7 million for all of those projects.
What does your teaching and training tell you about, if anything, about rapid growth in a business?
I look at a lot of businesses, and it doesn't matter what kind of industry or what kind of business or what kind of solvency they have. Managing growth is really challenging, and managing this kind of exponential growth is challenging for any kind of a business. And so this depicts that, I mean, you don't really need to know much else, but to see a growth from 5 projects to 15 from one year to the next, or 2.2 to 6.7 in one year, that presents a challenge for anybody.
Did you analyze each of the purchases depicted here?
Yes, I did.
Scott, can I get Exhibit 6-24 Delta, please? Ma'am, do you recognize this?
I do.
Did you prepare it?
I did.
What material did you use to prepare it?
A lot of those same documents, a lot of the deeds, the warranty deeds, trust deeds. The trust deeds show or reflected of the loan. So all the loan documents, the primary lender, all the second, third, and fourth lender, position lenders that I call rehab lenders. The settlement statements for the purchase, the settlement statements for the sale, and then what the rehab expenses were. And for that, I've used what Kouri Richins reported to her tax preparer, and then I did an analysis of every transaction in her accounts to understand what the expenses were.
We'll get there in a minute. Thank you.
Okay.
I want to admit it first.
Sorry.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit 6-24 Delta.
No objection.
6-24D is admitted.
Scott, can you show that in split screen, 2 pages?
Mr. Bloodworth, for me personally, will you identify a spot where we can take a restroom break?
Yes, Your Honor, I got it planned out right after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, do each of these columns, and we're going to drill down in some here in a minute, but do each of these columns vertically depict one of those transactions, one of those property transactions?
Yes, each column is one property.
Scott, let's zoom in on the far left column and the first property. Can you please explain to the jury what that far left column, purchase, sale, rehab expenses, depicts?
Yes. So at the top, it's the 550 house. The address is 550 and 550, and it's in Heber. So it's called, I call it the 550 house. It was $215,000 to purchase.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Let me stop you. I mean, interrupt. I'm one column to the left.
Oh, sorry. Okay. The first section is the purchase. So that's the purchase, what she borrowed to buy it, and there were other funds that she borrowed, and then the closing costs. And so the equity in the property at the time of the purchase.
Okay. And then what's the next column? The next section, the sales section?
So when she sold it, what was the sales price? She had to repay those borrowed funds. If I knew the closing costs, I've included them. If I haven't, if I wasn't sure I had the final settlement statement, I didn't include it. And then I get what the net proceeds were at the time of the sale. So that would have been the amount that landed in her bank account.
Okay. And then the bottom, rehab expenses section. What is that and how did you calculate it?
So the rehab expenses, as I said, she reported some to her tax preparer, her CPA, and most of the times I went back to her bank account and I looked at her memo notations about which project a specific expense was for. They're not all labeled.
Let me stop you there. Okay. Why did you not use the expenses that she gave to her tax CPA?
They were not correct.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor. Can we approach?
Yep.
Okay, sidebar there. The defense didn't like that assertion that Kouri lied to her CPA. Marie Pereira, more, just came to, they're piling on. And if you're following along, it is a compelling story. Is there a risk that jurors will kind of lose a bit of focus here?
No. No. This is typically boring, but it's not, because it's showing how she was spending when he was alive, how broke she was, and then how she forged a power of attorney, because she said Kouri Richins, attorney in fact. So there's even notary fraud involved, because for you to get a power of attorney, the person has to sign in the presence of a notary. So how did she do that? That part is very aggravating and confusing. So she's spending his money. She took out a loan on a house she didn't own, and she's she maxed out the HELOC, because you know why? They're going to argue, because she knew at the end of the day, he wasn't ever going to find out, because she gave him that drink with the fentanyl. She was so brazen about it because she knew that there's nothing he could do about it, and he would never find out. It's a motive. Maybe he did find out. Maybe he confronted her, and that's why she poisoned him. Either way, this looks really bad for her, and it's another big, big brick in the circumstantial evidence case they're building. It is not boring at all. Nobody's falling asleep here, period.
Do you think, to what extent did Eric know that you have a couple, they're married, he's doing very well, successful business, she wants to start flipping homes. Well, it's not like she's doing this on the side. He knows that she is flipping homes. He has to, yet she's concealing the details. Is it, what's the point of concealing? I mean, if a couple is sort of engaged in a business venture together, which they presumably were, you'd want to share the ups and downs, the highs and the lows.
That's what's called betrayal, Ted. And I'm also an expert in betrayal. You live with somebody, you think you know them, and you're really sleeping with the enemy. So she had all of that going on. Her business was failing, and she had him believing she was that girl, flipping houses and making money left and right, when at the end of the day, she ended up forging a power of attorney to tap into his money to continue her business. And the fact that she had the nerve to do that is going to tell the jurors maybe she had the motive to murder him too, because what was she going to do when he found out? Because eventually he was going to find out somehow that she forged a power of attorney and had the HELOC in his name, and she was spending all the money like it was hers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously their marriage was not very good because she was not honest with him while she was failing, trying to come up with plans to make it work, I guess. It is fascinating. Of all the accounting recitals that we've watched here on Court TV, this one actually has you glued, because you can see
not boring.
You're right, because every number you see her in the background manipulating and trying to fix up a house. Yeah.
You could see her chest rising. I'm a nurse. She seems to be trying to have the resting B face, right? But she's not. She's like,
oh, she's reliving this
chest is
nightmare.
rising.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm telling you.
I agree. Let's get a break, and we'll get you back into that Utah courtroom. We'll continue our accounting lesson and watch Kouri and her chest rising, as Marie says, as she has to relive the nightmare of financial ruin. Stay with us.
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of 3, met an untimely end, and Kouri, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder. He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of grief?
The truth will come out.
The Grief Author Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Welcome back. Let's head back to Utah.
Ma'am, you said that you did not use expense reporting to the tax accountants because they were inaccurate. How then did you determine the rehab expenses?
So I went through every transaction in that K. Richins Realty 6577 account. And I looked at the check copies, and I looked at the notations. Sometimes the transactions had a notation or a payee in the body of the statement. So I took those, and quite often Kouri Richins would write on a check, this is for Mill Creek, or this is for Centerville, or this is for Sandy. And so then I've taken those at face value, and it's a sorting exercise. So that's how I arrived at this number.
Were you able to allocate all rehab expenses to particular projects?
I was not.
So if it's shown in the accounting for one particular project, you can definitely trace it to that project.
Based on Kouri Richins' notations, yes.
And by using the approach of not allocating expenses unless you were certain, is that a conservative approach to accounting?
Back to leading.
Let's let him finish the question, and then I'll rule on it. Would you state it again for me, sir?
By not allocating expenses to a particular project unless you could trace them to that project, is that a conservative accounting approach?
It is.
Overruled.
Does it underestimate the expenses for one particular project?
It does. For example, in 2021, there's $400,000 of expenses that I can tell go to trades or vendors, her subs, for projects, but I can't tell what project they're for. So there's $400,000 in 2021.
So that $400,000 doesn't even appear on this entire chart.
That's right.
But you know they were expenses towards rehab.
They were the same payees, so yes.
You also mentioned that you didn't include closing costs at sale unless you were certain of them.
Right, because there are different versions, different draft versions of a settlement statement, and they change as the title company's trying to get to the final numbers. So if I wasn't confident that was the final one that I had, then I've left that blank.
Okay. Now let's talk about the net proceeds, the 100. Let's go into the 550 house. That's just the first one. We'll take it as an example, okay?
Okay.
So she purchased that house for $215,000, is that right?
That's right.
And she borrowed $221 initially on it?
Yes.
And she had $7,000 in closing costs?
Yes.
So does that first total negative $13,800 show that the minute she closed on the house, she was $13,800 in the hole?
That's right.
And is that why it is color-coded red on your chart?
Yes.
Okay, and then she rehabbed it.
That's correct.
And she sold it. And she sold it for $404,000.
Yes.
But she had all kinds of transaction costs. She had to repay borrowed funds. She had closing costs, perhaps none on this project. And at the end of the day, when she sold it, what amount of money hit her bank account?
$145,802.
And how do you know that?
Because it hit her bank account.
And can you see it in her bank account statements?
Yes.
Now, we get down to the rehab expenses for the 550 house, that column. You were able to trace $98,000 to it.
Yes.
There may be more out there, but you were only able to trace $98,000 to it.
Yes.
So for this project, she made, it appears, based on your conservative accounting, $47,000.
Right, and I have that in gray because so much of the HELOC funds were used for this project. She bought this. She had the HELOC in March, and then she started drawing on it again when she bought this property in August of 2021. And I believe that some of those funds were, I don't want to double dip. So
okay.
I've left it gray.
So because it's gray, she made $47,000 or less on this house.
Yeah, and I think she probably made a profit, bottom line profit on this house.
Let's turn to one more example, please, okay? Scott, can I get the Mill Creek example? Okay. make sure we all understand. She purchased, does this say that she purchased the Mill Creek house for $650,000?
Yes.
And that she borrowed 3 times right away, $721,115 and $41.
Yeah, so she bought this in March. So the borrowed funds of $721 is what she borrowed out of the gate. And then the $115 came a few months later.
Okay, and how about the $41?
That was also a few months later.
So kind of equity at the time of purchase or within a few months of purchase, she was $228,000 in the hole on this house.
Yes.
She sold it for $115,000, or sorry, $1,115,000.
That's correct.
But she had closing costs. She had to repay what she bought on it. And she had $836,000 in costs unrelated to the rehab. Is that correct?
Right, that's just the loan, and you'll notice that the repayment of borrowed funds is the same amount as the borrowed funds above.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly why I did that, but that is the interest should be on top of that. So that's a conservative amount. There should be interest payment or interest costs.
And why did you not include the interest costs?
I can't remember. I had a reason, and I can't remember.
But your reason at bottom was it was conservative to not include them?
It was. She had to repay at least what she borrowed.
Okay.
So.
But at the end of this transaction, when it closed, how much money hit her bank account?
$32,467.43.
And were you able to trace rehab expenses to this project?
Yes.
How much did you trace to this project?
$188,000.
But there could be more that you were unable to trace.
There could be more, yeah.
There could be more out of that pot of $400,000.
This was a big project, and yes.
So at the end of the day, 32 minus the 188 left her losing $155,000 on this project?
At least that, yes.
Maybe more?
Yes.
Okay, Scott, let's back out of the whole shebang and go to the far right column. Okay, let's look at the numbers kind of off the page. There's 2 outlying numbers. The first is what does that 2.142 million mean?
That is her net equity in all of these projects. So I've taken, that's a horizontal sum. So negative 2.1 million that she was in the hole as soon as she purchased the projects.
Then we go down to that negative 469,000. What does that number mean?
That means again, that's a horizontal sum across all properties. What I estimate her net loss was on all those properties. Yes, net loss on all those properties.
So she lost $469,000 based on this accounting.
Right, and that doesn't include the $400,000 in additional expenses. Actually, it's $460,000 for all of the projects. So add that together, and then it also, there's no net loss that I've included in this number for the properties that were lost in foreclosure.
Okay.
Because they weren't sold.
So this is only properties that were sold. She lost $469,000 plus another $460,000 that you were unable to directly trace to a project. So just on properties that were sold, forgetting about properties that were foreclosed, she lost over $900,000.
That's correct.
Scott, can you go to the Barney column? Okay. I just want to show the Barney column. I think, Your Honor, this would be a good time to pause, and we can come back and address the Barney House.
Very good. Folks, let's take a break.